Hi, everyone, and welcome to another 4D Method 4D user group. Today is November 20th, 2024. This is the last meeting of the year. So uh, happy holidays and happy new year. We'll see you next year. Hope you've had a good one. This is meeting number 75, fighting number 75. Today, we're going to get a little recap about the 4D Method user group, see what's coming up on the schedule for upcoming presentations. We'll get a little happy hour review from Kirk Brooks. Sounds like there's been a lot of really interesting topics presented each week in the past few weeks. We'll get some 4D news, some news from Jim Sobczak about what's been going on with 4D, the business of 4D. I'll review a couple of blog highlights. And then we'll highlight one of the recent articles that came out in the knowledge base, a tech note. And then we'll get what we all came here for, which is a great presentation from Juan Perez on dynamically constructing ORDA queries with a JSON-based query framework. So my name is Brent Raymond. I organize this user group and do my best to keep it organized, if we can call it that. The website that you can get more information about the user group is 4dmethod.com. I can be reached at 4dmethod@gmail.com. I'm a long time understatement of the day, a long time 4D developer myself. I've worked in all kinds of different industries and applications. I like a good challenge, and I like to solve a good challenge using 4D and tying 4D into integrating 4D with other platforms. I'm still doing a lot of work with automating Jira with 4D. If any of you remember that topic from one of the last 4D summits. So what we are doing with the 4D method user group is just it's going on several years ago that we've been doing this. Just started it to bring together developers from all over the place for them to share their programming techniques and really just to see what people are doing with 4D around the world. It's also great for application users to find development support. So if you're a developer out there, this is a great place to see who's using 4D for what, and that there might be a chance to get involved in some of these projects. And in general, just to see what can be done with 4D, get some ideas for your own applications. This is your 4D support community, at least part of it, as we'll talk a little bit later with Kirk about other aspects, other great places to where you can meet up with the community. You too can be a presenter in this user group. This is your group. Show off what you're doing, your application, your product, or just some of the things you've been kicking around in your head to say, hey, look what I can do with the new language or otherwise. We have a unusually really full roster of dates and great presentations coming up in the new year. There's to start off the year, we have one from Keisuke Miyako, just one of the brightest developers in the community, and no offense to anyone else, but he's really good. He's going to show us a demo on offline updates and two-way synchronization in ORDA. It's basically he's taking some of the code that was written for 4D for mobile for offline synchronization and showing how it can be used in other capacities with 4D standalone applications, for instance. Right, and then on March 12th, we'll get a great presentation from Ricardo Mello called 4D and AI, Bring the Power of Large Language Models to Your 4D Applications. So that should be very interesting. Obviously, that's topical. There's a lot of discussions about AI out there, and we'll have our own. So then on April 30th, we'll get a demo from Jim Carver on beautiful documentation made easy. Most of us would be happy with any documentation, but beautiful is even better. So yeah, it's especially if it's easy. So you can see the schedule at 4dmethod.com/schedule to not only see what's coming up, but all of the, I mentioned this is meeting number 75. We have most of the previous meetings all recorded and available on the 4D Method YouTube channel. So there's some oldies but goodies on there. Most of this stuff is it's ever been said in this in these user groups are all fairly still relevant. So that's an exciting thing. Lot of great content out there for your reviewing pleasure. And like I mentioned, what about you? We've got some open dates on June 18th if you're looking for how you want to spend your summer, and August 6th. Just plenty of time. So if you have the idea that you might like to do it one of these days, you just are too busy right now, well, these dates are for you. So you can just reach out, share a topic, share a title, give us a chat about what you're going to show off, and it's an easy crowd. Sometimes we get comments from the likes of Tim Neville's. Most other people are pretty they just applaud. But yeah, and if you don't want to do it live, which is sometimes messy, I'd be happy to share any demo that you record, and just to show off all of your great work. So check out the schedule and see where you can fit in. So speaking of great ways to get together with the community, I'm going to kick it over to Kirk Brooks to talk a little bit about some of the recent happy hour get-togethers that have happened.
Thanks, Jim. Or I'm sorry, thanks, Brent.
That's all right. That works.
Yeah, well,
I've been called worse.
Speaking of messy. But yeah, 4D happy hours just been, frankly, really, really pretty good for the last few weeks. I don't know what it is. There's just seems to be a lot going on in the community. Last Friday, Matt Sainson from Green Acres Farm did a really great in-depth presentation of a data dictionary that he has added to an app that he manages now for a fairly good-sized company. I mean, they have, if I'm remembering correctly, about a dozen stores in 2 or 3 different states, and then a couple of production facilities. And so, it's a good size operation. And the need was being driven mainly by like the business analysis folks wanting to just kind of asking, kind of legitimate business questions like, so what is all this data that is in this database, and how do I know what it is? And clear, of course, you can open up your SQL backend and just let people query on it. But then that sort of begs the question of like, okay, great, but how do I know what I want to query? And that is really kind of a non-trivial question to answer. And Matt was showing his answer to it, which I know I found really interesting, because those are questions that of course I've dealt with before. I mean, as a developer, I think we all deal with them at some point. It's just usually these are conversations we're just having internally with ourselves, or maybe with the user, and then we come up with something, and that's like our user search box. So I know I got a lot of good information from this one, and I found it pretty interesting. A couple weeks before then, I think I spent some time showing off how I use Claude in developing 4D code. which was kind of a lot of fun because it was kind of a classic happy hour experience of just sharing a screen and starting to do things, and then everybody's pitching in, going, "Hey, but what if we do this?" And "Hey, what happens if you do that?" And and so we're trying things, which is part of what's really fun for me about doing that. This Friday, actually, Lee Hind and Angel Velasquez will be talking about Cloudflare. This was spawned by a post on the Discuss forum a little bit ago. And they'll be just kind of batting around some ideas about using Cloudflare as a front end to a hosted 4D web server. So that's a timely and topical thing that'll probably be interesting. And actually what I'm going to do is, so I guess the theme this Friday, for anybody who's interested, is probably going to be on this idea of 4D web serving, because I know a couple of other folks are pretty interested in asking the question of, or challenging the assertion that 4D is actually up to hosting, full-blown public web server duties. And there's several people at the happy hour that show up at happy hour that are doing this. They've got web servers that they've been running for a while. They're servicing large numbers of hits. They're doing it all with 4D. Many of a couple of them, I know the whole app is web based, with the everything happening on the web, and the 4D interface just being used mainly for administrative stuff. So I think we'll start off this Friday with a little discussion about that. So I encourage anybody who's got questions or is interested in either getting information or talking about how you use that. Or if you've got a terrible story of something that just crashed and burned, and you're over the trauma of it and willing to share that, then come share that with us also, because that's kind of what we do. And usually it just yields a whole lot of really interesting interchange and good information. So that's every Friday, 3:30 Pacific time. I will post the link in chat. 4dhappyhour.com also has the link to it there. And I hope you'll join us.
Thanks, Kurt. Yeah, that's not to be confused with Cloud Strike, and which obviously got a bad name for all the outages. Don't be afraid. No, that's sounds very interesting. It's a good way to take a look at 4D at scale and how it fits into popular architectures out there for web serving. And the discussion from last week definitely sounded interesting. I mean, we can always easily open up the SQL backend, but then the question is, what are people doing with it, and are they interpreting your data the way that you expect they would interpret it? So it can come with a cost. So any way to better clarify the data as you publish it, the better. So thanks again for providing a review of the 4D Happy Hour, and for hosting that every week. I know it's a lot of fun, but also a lot of effort goes into that from Kirk. So thanks for doing that, Kirk. Right, and then I'm gonna pass it over to Jim to talk to us a little bit about news from 4D, the business.
Okay, thank you, Brent. Appreciate that. Greetings from Northern California here, where we're on the leading edge of a bomb cyclone.
Ooh.
It's working its way down from Washington, so we're just starting to get the rain and the wind, and we're supposed to get a lot of rain in the next week, so should be an interesting week for us. Yeah, thank you, Brent, for inviting Ad and myself to participate in this meeting. It's always great for us to touch base with the 4D community, see what's going on. We're looking forward to Juan Carlos's presentation. QMed, where Juan Carlos works, has been a long-time 4D developer, so one of our our favorite partners there. And before that, of course, he was at HBO Latin America, where we did a lot of work with him there. So I'm excited to see what he's up to, and should be a really interesting presentation. He's a great resource in the 4D community for sure. Okay, as far as 4D business is going, our staff is busy now until the end of the year, renewing 4D partnerships for next year. There's several hundred of those to renew, so we're busy getting the invoices out and quotes out and everything. So we want to get that all done before the end of the year. It's interesting. I'm sure you've been getting email about a new partner landing page that we are working on now. So this is an opportunity to get your partner information up on the partner landing page. So your company overview, your experience with 4D, the sector that you work in, the company sector or vertical market that you work in. We used to have something like this on the old partner site, and we're revamping the idea, but this is much better. And we're hoping that all of you are getting that email about that and providing your information. Because the more people we get on there, the better it looks, obviously, to the rest of the world, seeing that we have all these 4D developers out there. So please don't ignore it. If you get that email, it'd be great to get your information up there. Yesterday, we started our annual Amazon promo. So that will run from yesterday till the end of the year. And it's an opportunity to do some Christmas shopping. So if you have any 4D product you want to order, if it's 4020 and you order maintenance, then you are entitled to up to $600 in Amazon gift codes. So this has been a really successful promotion for us over the years, and we're glad to do it again this year. Some of the other subsidiaries will be doing it as well. So if you have something you want to order, this is a good time to be doing that. As far as the webinars go, I know, Brent, you have a slide about that, but thank you all for attending last week's 4020 R6 webinar. With will and add, it was a record attendance for that webinar. It was up over 40% from 4020 R5 webinars. We're getting really good feedback about the additional demos that Ad is providing that go along with the webinar. So thank you all for attending that. We continue to just keep rolling with those. And yeah, we're super excited about the release of 4020 R6. And if you look on the blog, as soon as 4020 R6 was released, the beta of 4020 R7 went up, and then just a plethora of blog posts went up. So those are the product owners of 4D Write, 4D View, Codely for 4D, networking people are all putting up new blog posts now about 4020 R7. So it's a good place to be following the blog right now. And then finally, on-demand training, that continues to be a big deal for us. We're putting a lot of effort into the on-demand site now. Not only the content of the training, but also the marketing that we're doing for the training. So I think now we're highlighting 4D for beginners in project mode using ORDA. So this is a great sequence of training that's really designed for people who are new to project mode in ORDA. A great opportunity for new 4D developers, or if you're at a company that has a 4D developer who's new, to kind of get on board with project mode and ORDA, because as we all know, that's where the future of 4D is. That's where all our features are going into ORDA and project mode. So really good chance for new developers to look at that. So I think that's all I have. I wanted to wish everyone a happy holiday season, because as Brent mentioned, this will be our last meeting of the year, but happy holidays to all of you. And we'll be talking soon. Thank you, Brent.
All right. Thanks, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of exciting stuff. Yeah, it's Jim mentioned learning more about project mode. If anybody's not in project mode, you're really missing out. It's there's a lot of interesting ways to different ways to code in 4D once you step into the project mode world, classes and all of that, and it's good stuff. So it's good to catch up with that with with the recent R6 webinars and all of the online training that they're continuing to build on. The R6, as we mentioned, was recently released. I know we hopped onto that at the Art Institute of Chicago, where we use 4D for lots of things, basically everything for keeping track of the art collection. In R6, there's a bunch of features which we've covered in previous meetings, so I won't go into it too much, but just to highlight them here, the REST and Codely support of singletons being one of the most recent class developments in recent builds or recent releases. HTTP agents for customizing connections to 4D to other servers that you're connecting to. Shared classes between components, which is great. Comparison operators for objects and collections. That's basically being able to compare at a reference level. There was a chat on somewhere recently, Slack or otherwise, talking about now you can do find an array with objects, where you can actually, and it's fast because it's using references. Well, I think that's connected to this feature. Accessing session storage by ID. That's web or also 4D remote, 4D client session storage. There's also a new preference for compiler warnings. Makes them a lot more useful unless you've muted them all at this point. Custom parameters for web area initialization, the ability to integrate components from GitHub repositories, updates for the 4D Netkit for connection dialogues to OAuth 2.0 sources, authentication sources, authenticators, and an update to subform scrolling behavior. But yeah, if you're looking forward to the upcoming release of 4D 20R7, look no further for in-depth information than the 4D blog, which is great because like Jim said, a lot of the newest articles that come out generally are about the newest features that are coming out in the next release, our release specifically normally. Couple of blog articles that I found noteworthy.
Brent,
Yep.
question?
Yes.
Go back one slide.
Yep.
The custom parameters for web area init, that feature. Kirk, is that the feature you requested a long time ago? So you could configure a web area so you could do cross-site scripting and things? Kirk says yes, so we got that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it, and they really did just open up the ability to configure the Ceph settings. Pretty much all of them are available to us now.
That's a big deal. So really
it is a big deal.
Very customizable now. Finally,
it is a big deal. That puts that, I think personally, that puts a web area into a whole new area of what you could do with an interface using that.
Which is already a lot with web areas. So, expanding on that is.
We need a 4DMethod show on this, don't we? We need a 4DMethod on web areas as a UI interface on forms.
We should probably, just argue about it at 4D Happy Hour for a time.
We can start there.
It'd be interesting just to see like a quick snapshot of how, the different things, creative things, ways that people have found to use the 4D web areas, which I know I've been involved in several myself. So yeah, they can be handy, especially when you're being pressed to use a 4D remote, 4D client application and connecting to other web applications and having it integrate with those. That's one way you can go about it if there's not an API you can use in the background. But yeah, no, great. It's a requested feature delivered. Good request. Yeah, and then kicking over to some of the R7 features that are coming out, already available in beta. The ability to access Codely Studio for 4D directly from your 4D server to test and debug your code. As you know, as we all know, real world applications can get pretty complicated. So anything you can do to get a deeper look at how what's happening in the in debugging the processes that you're serving, it's very important and beneficial. So, yep, exciting enhancements for managing processes and sessions. Yep, so they're always, I think this actually came from a request as well to, for instance, did you want to know when a process started? You can now see the creation date for processes and a few additional details we didn't have access to before. Defining a different icon for each window. Now, this is actually kind of fun, I think. It's not just the icon, which is one thing that's nice to round off your application. Put a little descriptive icon for each window type that you have in your application, but it also enables you to do the kind of say contextual click on the header bar there and take you directly to a file or a location on disk. So that is kind of out of the box. You just have to give it along with the icon, say like a document type icon, it will give you, allow you to route the user directly to said document on disk, which is, I think we'll all find find a use for that feature. We do see it in the 4D application, 4D development environment itself, and so I think they're just exposing that for us to do easily do in our own applications directly from the header bars. Right, adding and removing GitHub and local components made easy. That's expanding on the component, what are they calling it? The component manager interface, and effectively makes it so that you can manage both local components and GitHub components. So you can add paths to local components and yeah, manage them along with everything else so that as you're developing them locally, you don't have to just be adding the path to components on GitHub. Then there's also another article on enhancing compilation with direct typing in 4D. This is going to be the default setting, default behavior for new 4D applications. For all of us, we'll have to enable it as a compatibility feature. But it is basically so you don't have to declare methods like we used to. And now you can declare, I think it's also process variables. All of that can now be declared directly, direct typing, directly just using the hashtag declare for the parameters and just general var declaration of process variables and applications, which is nice. It can get annoying if you're making changes, you have to make them in two different places for, say, what a parameter is for a method, and then you get yelled at if it's not done in both places. No one likes to be yelled at. So then there's another one on session singletons. Not only do we have singletons now, each session can have their own individualized singleton. It's a single serving generation. So this is just a big more step in that direction. And then this is, I think, a huge one personally. The next one, encryption, authentication, and certificate authority validation. It's in essence, it's for engined applications specifically because it's enabled by a new key in the XML, or if you're building with other tools, there will be a new key in those tools. But what it does is it enables 4D clients to verify the certificate that they receive from the 4D server independently with the authority. So it ensures the server's identity is who you expect it to be, and it's for protection against man-in-the-middle attacks. So it's just yeah, it's not only is it just verifying locally the certificate, it's independently going out and making sure it's an enhancement on the TLS behavior that we already have. So that's, I think, we all take security very seriously. Yeah, Tim?
Is this the traffic between 4D remote and 4D server?
Yes.
So this is a certificate that's always been there that 4D is generating and sending back and forth? Because we've never had to deal with this certificate.
Right. No, I think it's always been fairly transparent. But
How could you hack it then? If it's all internal, we can't see it. How do you get in the middle? I guess there must be a way, otherwise they wouldn't have done this. Okay.
It's a dangerous world out there, especially if you're in the demilitarized, the DMZ part of the network, connecting over the WAN or other acronyms that I'm sure I don't know. So it's just bolstering the security and that's offered out of the box with these 4D applications and whatnot. I think it's great. I think we'll probably be hearing more about that and other steps to reinforce the security of these applications. And then there's energize your web applications with the outgoing message class, which I think is also huge. It's something for all of us who have our own home-rolled web serving and web APIs and that kind of thing. What this is effectively you can now have a class function, data class or otherwise. We already have the exposed keyword for, say, a data class function, which makes that function available through the REST API. Now you can add a new keyword on HTTP GET, which and have it return a class instance of 4D outgoing message. And that's where you'll handle all of the headers, all of the status code, any content that you're pushing back through that connection. Say like in the bottom left here, the file, you can pack up a file and pass it back. It just gives us some nice controls. Notice it's only HTTP GET. I think that's just one step towards other types of connections, say hosts and all of those kind of things, where they'll likely give us more control through class functions for modernizing the way we do this kind of stuff, which is great. I kind of expected that to come along for years, but this is the first step in that direction that I had kicked around making a class myself for doing this kind of thing. So again, it saves me the work. So again, great stuff. This is R7. We're getting closer to 21, version 21. I guess if we're calling it version 21 or just 4D21. But there's been just a lot of great features through all these R releases and heading in a great direction for the 4D 4D features that are coming out. Yeah, so enough of that. I'm going to pass it over to Ed to talk a little bit about one of the recent TechNote articles that came out in the 4D knowledge base.
Thank you, Brent. And hello, everyone. So for today, we will be covering just one TechNote that just came out from October. Actually, there will be one coming out later this week. Unfortunately, that one doesn't make it in time, but we'll roll that over to the next time. So for this particular TechNote, there's a lot of um, usefulness out of it. Mostly, just to give you a little bit of a background, when you start developing your code in 4D, every method, project method has its own properties. And, if you look at the list of your methods in the Explorer, there's some icons, slight changes of the icon that actually helps identifying what property is being added or possessed for that method. Now, over the years, there's some um, struggling in terms of finding where are the methods with particular properties or even applying changes in batch. If you look at the bottom of the Windows Explorer, you'll see there's an option to do batch attributes, stuff like that. It's still not quite useful enough, and mostly because of the inability to do a batch searching of a particular sets of methods that possess, for example, preemptive property, for example, or show all of my methods that has been set to invisible. So that's why this is kind of a useful component. It came right out of necessity of mostly in my own use case. I find it hard to find a set of methods that has execute on server property enable. So this is something that's going to be quite useful in your own application and in your own development. The component itself is published with uncompiled because it's most of the time you'll be using this component and you'll interpret it anyway. So the source code is included. You can take a look at what's happening behind the scene, but the overall implementation of this component is there to help facilitate and make your life easier in terms of where to find things and how to apply a batch property to a set of selected methods. So it's going to be quite useful in addition to what we already have inside of the Explorer. So yeah, have a look at it. And this one is written by our own technical services engineer, Elliot Jensen. He just joined us over about a year ago. And now that this is going to be something that everyone use. So if you have any question, obviously, always welcome to post your question directly. I think the best place would be right directly to the post that I usually do on the forums on the TechNote, under the TechNote, and the discussion can go there, and he'll be able to answer any of the questions you may have as well. Okay. And I think that is all for me for this time. Thank you, Brent.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, I've often found as I've been working with older applications like most of us do in modernizing code, making lots of methods preemptive and that kind of thing. It can be cumbersome to unless you're just looking at the files on disk to see which ones are flagged as preemptive to make sure that you've gotten everything that you expect. So yeah, any kind of better insight into those method properties, which can be very important, is welcome. So thanks, Ed, and thanks for all of your team's work with these tech notes. and tech tips. All right. All right, now the main feature here. Juan Carlos Perez is joining us from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, that area, just north of Miami. He has a long career working, as Jim mentioned earlier, with HBO Latin America previously. There he managed a team which supported the entire chain of content delivery, from content acquisition to playlist to including content production and preparation. More recently, he works with QMed Corporation as a software architect and IS director. He's here to show us today some interesting ways to configure your ORDA queries using a JSON-based query framework. So thanks for joining us, Juan Carlos.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here. Thank you, Brent, for the opportunity. So I'll just jump into the topic, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Let me quickly share my screen. Let me know when you guys can see it.
Yep, can see it.
Awesome. And excuse my dog.
It's that's applause right there.
Right, a little introduction of what is it that I'm going to try to demonstrate or share with you guys. No? I think if you guys attended the last meeting, the last World Tour, there was a presentation about doing basically the advice was try to do your ORDA queries in one single line instead of stacking them up in multiple queries to get the final result. So based on that idea, I thought that it would be interesting to be able to come up with a way of saving your queries so you can manipulate them and then concatenate them if you wanted to, so you can issue one single command. And then I tie that into the whole idea of the query commands that, remember, you would just to build the query commands, add an asterisk at the end, and only at the very end issue one last query with a table, and that will execute the query, right? So that will be kind of a way of doing multiple ands and then executing, or doing multiple and executing and then an or with a query selection, correct? Okay, so that's the context of how did I arrive here. We're sharing this through the 4DMethod. Brent probably sent you already, guys, share with you the access to the GitHub. You can download the demo. Really, the framework is mainly 4 different methods. I don't know if we should call it a framework.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's basically 3 main components, or 3 main core methods. There is one method to be able to build that query progressively without executing it. There is a method for actually parsing the query. Okay, and this will return is an object that you can then use in a DS query, in a data class query class. And there is one last method. Where is it? We got.
I did put a link to the GitHub repository that has this demo in the chat, and it's on the post on 4DMethod. Yep.
There is one last one that will do the actual build of the object that you're going to use. I misspoke there. So it's just 3 main methods. Okay. Alrighty, questions up to here? I'm probably guessing there's many. So this is a simple database I created just for this demo. Just a quick overview of that database. So we have countries, movies, which may have a country of origin, a country table, the producers of that movie, which is basically a one-to-many relationship with movies, and the companies that acted as producers. And then we have 2 supplementary tables that are really not needed. I find it's better to do it this way, but you guys are free to save this information in an external JSON file if you think that works better for you. The same for the DB aliases, which this is just to enhance or show that you can extend the idea of saving your queries as a JSON string, so you can then do more stuff like that. And I will get to that in a second. All righty, so we have this query screen, and this is the way we're going to build our queries. You can select whatever main table you're going to use for that query, and then a regular user, doesn't have to be technical, could start building the query here. Okay, so by default, there is already a line there. I'm going to double click, then I have the list of attributes that belong to the main table. I'm going to say, I'm going to look for movies with titles that are start. Yeah, sorry, that start with an A. All right. Here it is. And then you can just run the query from there. And what you get now is sorry, guys. Wrong place for the breakpoint. Let's do that again. Run. And then in here, you can see that I got exactly movies only starting with A. Okay. American Beauty. Let's do it here really quick. So you see all of them start with A. Now we're going to make something more interesting. We can now add another question. And let's say that we only want movies which the genre is drama or contains drama. Run that. And now our selection changes to only the movies that are drama. We can quickly verify that by doing this. Yep. All of them contain drama. So you can basically do whatever you want here, because as you may see, when I double click here, that's another question here. When I double click here, I basically have a list of potential operators, right? And then by using these operators, you can do more sophisticated queries where you group parameters and combine ands and ors, okay? So all that is also supported. Let's say that we're gonna do an or. We have a bug.
The curse of the demo.
Yeah.
It's always good to have it in a GitHub repository. For anyone who's doing these demos, yeah, it's good to be able to fix things afterwards.
Or here really quick. use 2000. Run it. And then we didn't have any, I know why. There's one parenthesis missing, so we're going to have to add something more here to close that. Stop with this. I got a bug that I won't be able to demonstrate that. Let's skip that for a second. So we'll go to the meat of the things. All righty. So what's behind of this? One important thing is, because everything is now saved behind the string as a JSON string, behind the same as a JSON string, I can do whatever I want with it. I can save it, and I've been saving all the queries that I've been doing as a user in the last recent queries. So similar to your query native 4D query screen, where you can kind of tap into the most recent queries, but this will be for whatever your own queries that you make. So I can go back to the query that I had before, for instance, or to the most complex queries I was trying to save. Every time you run, it saves there. You can also, as a user, create shortcuts. So let's say that we're going to save this as a shortcut. Let's say my query. And now I can use it. I can use this query by title. I can use this new shortcut that I just created. So it stays there. It doesn't disappear. It's safe in the database or in an external JSON string if you want to. So if you log out of your application, log back in, you can tap into those queries that you have saved, okay? So this is just as to demonstrate all the things that you can do, because now you're saving your queries in the database or offline, so you can tap into them. Now, the beauty of this is now they're just saved as an JSON object, and all you need to do is use the 2-3 method that I gave you that are in the system, so you can use it dynamically in your application. So let's say that when I run this, put a breakpoint somewhere here so you guys can see. To go too far. Run it, and now we're going to see what's behind all this. Alrighty, so what we are running is basically we have the query lines, that's whatever is on that screen, right? And as you see, they're in the form of a collection of lines, and each line has all the attributes that I need to do to build my query. So you have your logic attribute, you have your comparison, you have an alias, that is the way you show the name of a field to the user, and then you have the actual name of the attribute. So this also will allow you to customize your application if you wanted to, or if it doesn't need to be another language. You can expose query of a certain table for end users and give them natural language names to your fields so that they know how to build their queries, right? Instead of having I don't know, product underscore ID, then you have like item number or something like that, or movie key. Or instead of having title, you can use something else, original title, or some other translation. So each of these lines are in that collection. Then you pass that to your parse query method. And what that query method is going to return an object that has the query text that you can use now in your data class over here. And it has already the list of parameters with their values that you can also need to pass to your data class. Okay, so if we we are querying the table movies. So now that I have that object, all I need to do is execute this command in one line. It's dynamic, so you can use it for any table in your database. You pass the query text that you have here, and then you pass your parameters in the object. Actually, you pass the entire object. It will have the required attribute from 4D or from the class, and execute it. And now you have your selection.
It's nice that all of the attributes and parameters are all packed into the query object as well.
Correct. And then that's basically the whole thing. Is you have everything in a JSON object. You transform into the text and the parameters that are required for the data class query member function, and that's all you need.
What do you use? What do you use the $O query attributes collection for?
I'm sorry, where is
$sign up in the debugger or expression? $O query attributes. That collection. What do you use that for?
You could in theory use the.
You didn't use it here for the query. It's not necessary for the query. It's some extra metadata.
No, there is also an attribute parameter that you can use in the query when you want to use name parameters. And then your query text would look different, would look with
the name parameters. Okay,
name
I understand.
parameters.
That's right. Got you. Now I understand. Yeah.
I don't have it implemented, but you could implement it if you wanted to.
No, I understand the name queries is better than positional. Oh,
Correct.
but you are using positional, aren't you? You're not using name.
Mine, I'm using positional only. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Now,
but with this, you could make it name-based.
You could change it to be, because at the end of the day, this one doesn't matter. As long as you pass both and you build, the way you build your text is what matters. All you would need to change is the parse query method to do it instead of positional. You can do it then based on attributes. It entails a different kind of considerations, mainly for the naming of the attribute has to be something that, it's compliant with 4D's syntax, but it's doable. And the other advantage of doing it like that is it might be easy for you to then, let me continue here really quick. That's basically, this is basically the method that save it in the cache, so you have it as in recent queries. Okay, so we executed the query, right? Let's do something more interesting now. That's again, I can export this query. And now I can go to and I basically have that JSON object there. Open this in. Okay, so now you have it saved here, right? You can do whatever you want with it. You can store that in an archive. You can build an archive of queries that are the queries that you usually use. And then what you can do is you can combine them and execute that line with a combined version of the queries. And then you're saving time in processing time. Instead of sending four queries to the server, you might just be sending one that you previously concatenated. But you didn't have to do any, one single line of code for that. You just need to call the method that will concatenate them, and then you have it. And one of the use cases that led me to build these, see, you see how we have the queries here? You can keep all those queries that we create, you can save them here. So when you go here and say shortcut, all I'm doing is tapping into that table, which has all the queries saved. Now you can do whatever you want with that. You can loop through them. If they're all related, you can make combination of them and get results. And one of the things that I was doing for this, for one of the projects, is we needed to query a large database for results pertaining to a particular entity to determine, basically to aggregate them. Okay. Doing that will require the user, okay, building the query, do it, get the result. Okay, I need to do the query that I already know I need to do, run it, get the results. Second on this query, run it, get the results, and at the end, compare all the results. What we built for them was just give me the book of queries that you need to run. Will run automatically for you and give you the final result without having to go build all the queries independently and executing them independently. So you gain in performance, you gain in quick, it's easier for the user. Another idea where you can apply this is when you're building dynamic rule, like a query engine rules in your application. When you want to, we have a case in our company right now that we have a customer that may have a whole set of different rules on how we need to interpret the data that they gave us, right? They're always the same rules, but it changes in parameters every month. So we could build the rules in the forms of queries, saving in the database, and then in the routine that will give the final result to the user, we're telling them, okay, go apply the rules, and then based on the new data that came from the customers, tell me what should be the answer. I'm being a little bit cryptic because I can't give you much information, specifics on what we do, but it gives you an idea of how flexible this can be to build stuff where you don't have really, you can really hard code the values in your queries. You always have, those values are always changing. And are things that you are always, those things are always varying, but it's not something that you can anticipate how they're going to vary. So you just read the data points and you rebuild the query space on those data points.
Now, when you're merging two of these queries, you have the queries effectively stored as a collection of different parts of the query right now. Are you just combining the two collections in order to build the query together, or are you
correct? Basically, you will have to add all the query lines into one single collection, which will be this one.
Cool. So you're not actually running said queries, even on the server twice or for every.
No, not at all. And unless the only thing that you need to be careful with, and you will have to revise, is the line numbers. Probably not even that. The parser method will take care of that. So you have three queries. You say, okay, give me the three call query lines, merge them into one, and that's your new call query lines. And then you say, parse it. You get your object and you get your text string. And then you're good.
Nice.
Is it okay to have a question here, Ricardo?
Absolutely.
Very interesting. I love it. So is there a, did you manage to put your whole system under that premise, which is all my queries are being run by this database?
We didn't do it for the whole system,
Uh-huh.
but we tap into these we build basically a query engine rule that is tapping into this, and that's very specific to one of the modules, and then we're basically using that approach.
Yeah, because doing like that, I bet that your maintenance for the code is much simpler. So everything.
Completely.
Absolutely. So for example, if you need to add a field to a query, you don't need to go to the whole code and check and everything. You just add to the database the proper field, and that's it. You were safe.
Yeah,
that's very, very, very interesting. Very smart. Because
it gives you a lot of flexibility, which is what we're looking for. Of course, everything has caveats.
Yeah.
If you make changes to your data dictionary, you need to make sure that you revise your queries.
Yeah, I see.
It's the only thing, but it shouldn't be complicated because they're readable. You can just open the JSON files and do a search for the attribute that you change and update it.
Exactly. I like a lot also the names that you can give to the queries. They save automatically. So very good. Yeah, impressive.
And I think here is where is it? You have the attribute and you have the alias.
Yeah.
This is what you show to the user, and this is the actual table. So that gives you another advantage if you want to make your standard query screen available for the end users.
Yeah, users do tend to appreciate human readable field names and table names and sort of canned logic for navigating complicated data structures like that. So that can be very welcome, I'm sure.
The other thing that I wanted to mention is the power of ORDA. It allows you to do a lot of stuff with this. You notice that there's this attribute genres, but that's just the name of the relationship. And I use a different than operator to say, or basically an equal operator to say, give me all the movies that have drama in them. If you look at the query, look, it's just an equal operator, the query value with the @ sign surrounding them, and that's it. Or is capable of doing that query through all the collection.
Yeah.
And I think it's this something for B20 and up, I guess, right? I don't think you can do this in I haven't tried it.
Do you mean the alias or just naming the relationships?
Doing the operators directly on a collection attribute, like the genres.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you think also about AI in this case, you have already a map here to prompt well your engine, so it could help you further. I like a lot what you have exposed here, because in some ways you were centralizing all your queries in one table, and you could just export that table and prompt that table to even create things in a prompt. Like I'd say someone comes and say, please give me exactly what you said, right? The genre drama, and give them the information. And the prompt would create, knowing the whole set of fields and relations, you could even create extra queries involving those queries together, That's very interesting.
So you give your query a name. You're basically organizing it in a query book, if you will.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Sorry, Brent. I was going to say, you have three query names there, right? But let's suppose that to give an answer to a client, you need to run the first one and then run the second one and combine the results and give the result to the client, right?
Correct.
An AI, if well prompt, would know how to do that and could use it would know that, oh, I need to run that one first because that has that sets of fields and parameters, and then I'll feed the other one and then I'll get the result. See what I mean? For the AI engine, that could be very interesting to have that localized and easily to be prompt.
Yep. That's actually a great point. Now that AI is using natural language.
Exactly. Yeah, imagine that the first one was like, oh, give me all the dramas, right? And the second one would be just another query that you have there that gives you, if we give you a list of movies, would give all the actors that are common to that list, right? And then someone prompts the AI to say, oh, give me the actors that participate in 3 drama movies, right? And then the AI would know that, okay, so I have something on that first one, I have something on the third, on the last one. I'm going to combine both and give the result to the user. See what I mean?
Yep.
Okay.
Do you have an example of where the two searches are combined?
No, not in this one. Not in this.
It's nice to think about. You could show an interface like this and have a checkbox next to each one of them and say, here's the results. Cross-referencing each of these searches.
Right, that you can select. Right, yeah, right there. Exactly, like you can select these two and say now run.
Right.
Pretty much what I was trying to do with the parentheses, but now just to the UI.
Well, cool. It's it's a nice flexible layer that allows your what runs the business logic to be more generic. And you extract some of that logic and make it more accessible and more transparent to some degree for people who know how to work with these files. Great. Does anyone else have any comments or questions on what Juan Carlos has shown?
Yes, those aliases that you use, do you predefine them somewhere in the database or only at the query level?
Correct.
Okay.
You basically have a data dictionary with your aliases, and then you can activate or deactivate the attribute from your queries if you want to. And there is a method that allows you to build this.
Okay, yeah, because I've seen
that you can use it. I mean, really, this is any way you want to implement it. So you don't have to do it like this. You can have it like a JSON file with aliases as well if you want to. But if you go this route, there is a method there in the demo that you can use to basically build your aliases.
Yes.
Give me a second. In the database aliases.
Because I've seen field names getting weird.
Simple.
Yeah.
It just goes through entire data dictionary and initialize them with the same name as the attribute. That's all this.
Yep.
And that's not to be confused with the actual aliases that the 4D itself, the data store gives us access to, right?
These are your aliases. And in here, you can just decide for which table you want your aliases, because maybe you don't want to expose all your tables, just a few. So here you say, okay, these are the name of the tables I want to, or the data classes I want to create aliases for. And then this loop will take care of it.
Yeah, I imagine as well, Juan, that as a side effect as well, you have your code a little bit cleaner, right? So
Come again?
your code becomes cleaner. So because you don't have the build of all the queries embedded in the code, right? Sometimes you have a piece of code that you have like 4 or 5 queries to get to a result, and then your editor becomes like huge because you have all those queries to create them and etc. And then becomes just
it gets very verbose when you're building those queries. And the other thing that I particularly annoys me a little bit is when you have a massive query, you cannot really read it until you start scrolling, left and right. So this way is cleaner. You can inspect it in the debugger if you want to.
Yep. Cool.
Alrighty, that's pretty much it, Brent.
We have a compliment from the chat from MJR. This component Juan created for us is absolute magic for our business.
Awesome.
Next level 22nd century. Well, that sounds very useful.
And it sounds like Ricardo has a surprise for us in March regarding AI. So.
Maybe he can use some of these ideas. Well, anything that I always like anything that helps with the clarity of your application, and certainly with the optimization of certain queries. I do like to say, normally there's no good reason that it should be slow unless you're dealing with absolute scale and some super complex things that you're forced to deal with it in a slow way. But yeah, normally there's great 4D gives you great tools to optimize with.
It changes a little bit your paradigm, right? So if you start from the ground to have all the queries localized like that, it's almost like a shift in the way that you develop, right? So it's like, okay, so just call the query. Where's the query? It's in the database. Create the query in the database, and then you have an interface to create that query. It's almost standardized the way that you go along with, right? So it changes a little bit the way that you need to think about your code. No, it doesn't change at all the way that you need to think about your code, but it does create a process, right? It's interesting. It's very interesting. The comment makes sense. If you start to use those type of things and you have like a larger team, for example, this could help a lot, right?
Especially with standardization, because you want your team to always query certain transactions in the same way, right? And those transactions have multiple parameters, and depending on what you want to do. So what would you do today, right? You will write one query transaction method with all the logic there, probably 1,000 lines in there, right? Yep. But if something changes, now you need to deploy a new version.
Yep.
If all you're doing is querying and switching flags here and there because you don't want to search based on providers, you only want to search based on manufacturers or etc. Let's say that your business logic changed for whatever reason. Go into your query table, make the adjustment, your system is ready.
Yeah.
No code changes. And your developers are always querying the same way, which is always a challenge.
And did you notice also the reuse of queries as well? Because sometimes when you are just coding straightforward and you are building a system, and then sometimes you repeat some queries in some different areas, right? There's going to be this kind of the same query, maybe a little slightly difference in one point of your system. Then there's a very similar thing on the other side, and not always you have the the structure to just build it in a way that you're going to take advantage of those things, and then you end up with 2 different codes in different places, right? So if you're doing that, you kind of standardize the way.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a similar approach in an application that's used for sports handicapping, where the developer has a table of these queries, which he's constructed in a similar interface that you have here for, this is one query that, it can be as complex as you want, but naming it how you want, giving it a description. then there's an interface for some of the most powerful queries, where there's a large matrix of queries that you can turn on and turn off to have certain things, certain
Analysis, yeah.
certain
It's
games,
very usable.
yeah, that rise to the surface to say, this particular section of games is interesting with these query classifications. And yeah, so and like you said, once you've built it and given it another name, then it takes on a whole different character, and it's completely changes the usability of said queries, instead of having a page long of different and ors and following relations all over the place. Yeah, so it's no, it's and like you said, with the ORDA query strings, it's a lot easier than doing something like an execute statement on the classic logic, classic language of query lines, several query lines, and that kind of thing. Yeah, easier on the eyes and certainly easier to maintain.
Yeah, I think I tried doing, like, when you have a query screen and the user wants to, like when you run a report and you have 7 parameters, right? That the user can select from, then you have to build a query based on the selection of parameters. With the old classic 4D was simple, right? It will be query if around the query that you want to skip, depending on whether the user selected the parameter. Query at the end, you're done. If you try to do that with ORDA, it's painful because you need to modify the text string depending on how your parameters were selected, right? Because now it's like just a string, and you have ands in the middle. Then now you need to reposition, and it becomes kind of very verbose in your code. So with this, it's just add them to a collection, add them to a collection, add them to a collection, execute at the end.
Yeah, it can be. I'm sure there's some magic in managing the parentheses, as always, for any of these things.
The parentheses, I think the trick right now, and I couldn't demonstrate it, is you cannot do it at the end. You have to do it at the beginning, because you all have to have one more condition to close the previous parentheses. So that's the only thing. I haven't figured out how to make it, like, doesn't matter where you put it, it will figure it out.
If you figure that out, again,
I'll share it, probably like a version of that.
Yeah, it's as we all know, misplaced parenthesis can have an effect on things. Yeah. Well, very interesting, and thank you very much for sharing. It's it's just it's there. We all have our own individual challenges in the fields that we're in, but at some point in time, they all shake out to similar challenges, right? And so it's always interesting to see just a different approach to similar challenges, in this case of managing complex queries and allowing the users to navigate those queries and keeping it flexible in an environment that demands that. So, all right. Any other let's see, any other questions in the chat? Anybody else? Otherwise, we'll bring it back over here and wrap things up. If anyone has anything else to mention, now would be a good time. And let's see, I can get these controls out of my way. There we are. And right, we've already asked a few questions. Other than that, I know that the happy hour tends to be a good follow-up for some of these things. If there's additional discussion that that people are keen to have. Also, I've got a dedicated post on the 4D forum for this meeting, and you can feel free to throw an @ in there for Juan Carlos to respond to your inquiries now and in the future. Otherwise, all feedback is appreciated for these meetings. You can support us by taking part in the meetings and doing a demo yourself. And you can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/4DMethod. All support in any way is appreciated. And with that, just want to say thanks again to Juan Carlos for a nice demo, and to everyone at 4D for 4D has been at almost I don't think it's almost every one of these meetings. So it's great to have their participation and support. And Kirk, thanks so much for covering local or the latest with the 4D Happy Hour. With that, I'll say thanks again. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Brent.
Okay.
Thanks, Juan Carlos. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brent, and great presentation.
Thank you, Kirk.
Yeah, I concur. All right. See you all next time. Bye-bye.